Okay, so anything you don't want to say for posterity, you can email privately. But thank you all for being here, and a special thanks to Dr. Dylan Slaughter, Dr. Stacy Raviv, who have been guiding our shul since March of 2020, helping us formulate policy, answering my questions, answering many of your questions, in addition to their day jobs, actually, saving lives and fighting COVID in local hospitals. Dr. Raviv is a ICU pulmonologist here in Chicago. Dr. Slaughter is an infectious disease specialist in Indiana, not all that far away. And they're again battling COVID in their day jobs and then helping us and this community respond to COVID in their free time as they're available. And they've also been very helpful towards Chicago Jewish Day School, and to many members of the community who've turned to them for advice, including me, and I know many others as well. There we go, more are joining. In addition, they are longtime members of the shul, raising their children in the shul community. Many of us were able to celebrate the bar mitzvah of Gabi Raviv just this past Shabbat. So thank you, Stacy, for pivoting so quickly to helping the community after celebrating with us so recently. Okay, people are still joining, but I want to begin. Here's how I sort of envision this next 30 minutes or so. I'm going to invite the physicians to just first share their perspective of, what does the COVID pandemic look like in the hospitals where they work? How do they see where our city, our region is right now, and where is it headed? And then to pivot to describing their sense of like how they've guided the shul and the stance the shul has taken, which is more strict than some shuls in the community, a little bit less strict than some other shuls in the community. And so I want a sense of like how they've thought about the guidance that they have offered us, and then maybe some specific guidance for some people who might have specific high risk, low risk, children, older people living with them, or they themselves maybe, yourselves may be at a particular risk profile that sort of answer some of those questions. If there are enough of us that I think it's probably best not to have people ask questions live, but please use the chat to ask your questions. We will read them all, and if we don't have time to answer all of them, we'll have a chance to follow up as best we can, in the coming day or two, right? But certainly use the chat and we'll read everything. Okay, so I'm going to first unmute Dr. Raviv. So I'll ask you to unmute so you can unmute yourself, and please share your perspective with us. Thank you so much.
So I start with what we're seeing in the hospital. To give you a little bit of perspective, at the peak of the pandemic, we had 180 hospitalized at once. We now have 26, so significantly down. Our intensive care unit has about a dozen COVIDs right now, and they are almost completely unvaccinated. We've had a couple of breakthroughs. They tend to be people you would predict, people who have cancers, especially recent active chemotherapy, immunosuppressed for rheumatologic diseases. Some of the surprises for the breakthroughs have actually spent very short stays in the ICU and have gotten better and moved out. So it seems like the vaccines are very effective for keeping people out of the hospital and out of the intensive care unit. It seemed originally when the Pfizer data came out, it seemed like vaccines were very good for preventing any infection. Now it seems more like just very good for preventing severe infection. Probably still somewhat protective for any infection and for decreased ability to pass on disease to someone else. Why don't I stop there and let Dylan Slaughter catch up with his experience.
So, I think I would echo what Stacy said. We're seeing more cases in the community, but the burden in the hospital is diminished compared to what it was. And so there's the link between case numbers and hospital burden has been broken, or not fully, but to a large extent. And so I think that's a point worth emphasizing as we move forward as to how we think about how to manage our lives and how the shul will operate as we go forward, because we have to realize the virus is with us in the near term, in the medium term, and for the foreseeable future. And so we have to create mechanisms to carry on and evaluate our own personal risk and the risk of those with whom we live and those around us, and then move forward. And so I think it was with this in mind, and with the concept that the shul serves a vital function in the community, and it's essential for our individual and community well-being, that the shul is open and functioning as best as safely possible, that helped to guide our approach to our creating these protocols, and how we thought about the upcoming holidays and how to um, um, have the people gather safely in the show.
So let's pivot to those guidelines. To remind everyone, we are requiring everyone who's eligible to be vaccinated in order to get tickets for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So can't get tickets without checking a box and attesting your vaccination status. We're also requiring everyone to be masked indoors. And we're requiring, we're not requiring masking outdoors at this time. We are requiring it indoors. And we're feeding snacks to our children outside, but we're having some kids programming inside with masks for those kids, trying to make use of the space we have. And so I guess share a little bit about sort of the thought behind the safety, like why is it safe to have kids indoors when they're not vaccinated yet? And how can we have right now about 200 people are going to be in the main sanctuary wearing masks, but 200 people is a lot of people to be together, et cetera, et cetera. So share a little bit about, unpack for us, please, like how you think about the safety of those various circumstances. So here, Stacey, why don't you go first, and still went first. Keep on, Sure.
So masks are very effective. We know that that the spread of disease is going to be dependent on people per cubic feet, ventilation, prevalence of disease in the population, vaccination status. So we have a synagogue that's extremely well vaccinated. So a good portion of those people won't be able to pass on infection. Everyone's covered up. We have, it's a very high ceiling, big area. It's going to be relatively underpopulated compared to its capacity. And time is a factor as well. So we're not sleeping in there. We're there for a few hours. Personally, I feel very safe in that space with my neighbors, masked 200 people in that large room. I also fully support unmasking outside. We've learned that being outside is extremely safe. Some examples have been Black Lives Matter protests, Lollapalooza, and they're not proving to be super spreader events. And as the mother of a child who was at Lollapalooza, I was told it was like a field of sardines, and that we did not see a spike from that.
Dylan, anything you want to add to that, and maybe say something about children who are not vaccinated being in indoor programming? We've had a lot of questions about that.
No, sure. So yes, I think the two essential elements that are in our favor is that we do have such a high degree of immunity in the community, mainly from the vaccine. but also from, there are individuals who had the virus that might not even know it. So there is some component there as well. And so then the other element is we understand better how this virus spreads, and I think it allows us to gather indoors. And the so children are at increased risk, and there's for infection. Okay, and so then the question is, we have to we live with that risk. We open schools with knowing that risk, because we understand that the benefit of them being in person in school is essential for their educational growth and their social and personal well-being. And I think the same can apply to the synagogue. And so if we take measures that prevent, to the degree that's possible, the spread of the virus, which include masking, and we understand that that there's an inherent risk, but I think it's a risk that we can live with. And the other point to make is children are protected by those around them that are vaccinated. So when the vast majority of the adults in the community are vaccinated, there's less likelihood of the virus spreading within a gathering of people. And so I think we can gather safely. Now, masking is a broad term, and if one has risks, I think it's important to realize that there are different types of masks, and the type of hospital grade masks that we use, the N95, the KN95, are readily available now, and they provide a vastly enhanced measure of protection compared to the cloth or surgical masks that are commonly used. And so if one has those type of risks and still wants to come to shul and gather in a large group, I think you can enhance your protection significantly by wearing an N95 mask. And so I think it's another point worth emphasizing.
I want to build off a point that that Dylan makes that I think is really important, is that we sort of got into a pattern of looking for a way of zero risk over the past year and a half. And it's not the way that we've ever led our lives before. We always went in public during flu season, even though all of us in the hospitals have seen people die of flu every year. And we always get in our cars to get to work and go to the grocery store. And risk of dying in a car crash in your life is actually relatively high. And at this point, when you think about the relative safety of your vaccine, combined with the fact that this is no longer a short-term solution. We thought, in the very beginning when we were quarantined at home, I think we thought this could be weeks, couple of months, but this is going to be many years, potentially. And I think when I think about it that way, I can't, just like I'm not willing to stay in my home for flu season and not go places and go to work and do the errands that I need to run and bring my children here, there, and everywhere. It's important to go to do things that are communal, to go to synagogue, to send my kids to school, to show up to work. It would be a huge lifestyle decision to say that, for the next 3, 4, 10, 12 years that I'm going to take a zero risk approach.
Thank you. Another piece that I want that you touched upon, I want to reemphasize that you can wear an enhanced mask if it's well-fitting, right? That we now have access to these high-quality masks when at the beginning of the pandemic they weren't. I just remember the ethos of the spring of 2020, where high quality masks weren't available. And so we all had to wear, everyone had to, I protect you, you protect me, all of us, everyone's at the same level of protection and however effective it is or was. Now, if I feel I'm at extra risk, like I can wear a KN95 or an N95 mask, as a civilian. I can wear that to shul if it's a big crowd, or if I think that I'm at special risk or someone at home is extra. And that's really a significant difference than the situation we were in a year ago or 18 months ago. And I just feel like that should be more emphasized. Are there any questions? I mean, so Marilyn had a question about booster shots. Please, in the chat, if you have questions that have not been touched upon, angles, clarifications, please comment. Again, we will try to answer as many questions as we can in the next 10, 12 minutes. And then the questions we don't answer, we'll try to circle back. Any questions, comments, reactions from any of you listening?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Am I on? I didn't
Yeah, we hear you. We hear you, Barry.
Okay, thanks. I'm Barry Mogul. I've been in exile for a year and a half, and I miss the show dearly. But my question is now about risk and accumulation or accumulative risk, if there is such a thing. Going to shul, going to school, going to work. Is there an accumulated or cumulative relationship to these things, or is it each one an independent event? If you were to do these things, I live in a family environment. Family is looking to secure each other and protect each other. There's a matriarch, senior age, older than I, who has issues that she has to deal with that are commensurate with her age and her situation. And she is dealing with them, but she's considered compromisable to these risks. So this is probably the single biggest battle I'm fighting, is how to reckon with my risk being a reasonable risk to take, and it's not my own decision to make. There's a family involved. So cumulative risk, how does it work?
Oh yeah, I know, Barry, and we've kind of talked a little bit offline.
We've communicated for sure, yes.
I think there is a cumulative risk. The virus is out there, and so every time one engages, there's a risk inherent in that. And I don't know if there's a way to get around that, and so one can potentially pick and choose what types of engagement one prioritizes, and when doing so, minimize the risk. But as soon as you step out the door of your house, there's some risk. Outdoors, as Stacy said, is safe. This is an indoor virus. It's not an outdoor virus. Fully masked, properly masked is safe. And so I think the shul provides those opportunities. Big crowds are less safe. And so one has to, but it's hard for me to say beyond that. But every time I think the risk is cumulative over time. The vaccine is very effective. It's holding up to Delta. And I think the question that Marilyn asked is, is there a role for it, a booster? And I think there is for those with risk factors. But that's not to say the vaccine isn't working. The vaccines still work very effectively. They keep you out of the hospital. They keep those around you safe. But I hope that helps a little bit.
We have two questions. Well, so Marilyn wants to know if she gets
deal with the fact. I appreciate it, Dr. Dillon.
Marilyn wanted to know if she gets a booster now, is she going to have another one in 6 months? Is there 3 boosters, 4 or 5? I don't know if you know, but if you have a sense of, are we going to get COVID boosters every year eventually?
I don't think we know, and it's possible that the third will last longer than the second. It's possible that they're going to be tweaking the mRNA vaccine, that you'll have a vaccine that's particular to another variant. It's possible we'll find that the need for the third vaccine was overhyped. I don't know.
Okay, right. Thank you. We have 2 questions about the doors. We've been having, when we've gathered on Shabbat in large numbers, we've been opening the doors to the main sanctuary to increase airflow. And I guess one question is the back doors, the ones that like the main doors you enter the sanctuary from the back. We've been keeping those open for ventilation, lets in a lot of noise. And we've also kept the front side door, the one that goes in the front of the women's section that goes out to the parking lot. We've been propping that one open for ventilation. That one lets in both noise and cold and hot temperature. So is this necessary? Is this helpful? I mean, it was your advice. So why have we done this? Why is this helpful? Or if you don't think it is anymore, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've come to realize that the main way those virus spreads is through these what we call aerosols, or like microscopic particles that are suspended in the air. And the most effective way to mitigate that is to ventilate the air, so that the virus dissipates. And so you do need some flow of air. It's very helpful to do so. And even a minimal amount goes a long way. That's why this virus just doesn't spread outdoors, because of that fact. And so you try and emulate that in the indoor setting by taking the measures that you described. And it does create some inconvenience, but I think it's, in my mind, I think it's important and necessary.
Thank you. Any other questions? You can use the chat, or if you think of other questions, you can send them to me and I will pass them along to the physicians in the coming days. Any others for now? Okay. So thank you all for listening, and thank you especially Dr. Aviv, Dr. Slaughter, for once again sharing your experience and your expertise with this community. It means so much to have physicians who have experience with COVID and who are also like really just intimately in connection with this community, how we use our building, what this community means to its members, and can help our oh, here's a question, Jolie. When are we gonna get back to right? See, we're no longer asking when is it going to go back to normal. We want to know when can we go back to June of 2021, that golden age where we didn't have masks. In any sense of I mean, cases, the numbers are getting a little bit better the last 2 days. Do you have a sense of how quickly we'll get over this hump? Any prognostication?
My guess is we're going to see ups and downs until we just get comfortable with the idea that it's here. We have a good amount of protection with the vaccines, and I think eventually we'll worry less about getting infected like we do with, we've never really stressed about getting rhinovirus and things like that. You get colds. So I think eventually we'll get to a place like that. I want to make another comment about, just to compliment the shul and say that you may find that the regulations of the shul are a little bit different than what you see on a CDC website. The shul has the benefit of being able to be very nimble, and we really don't have any bureaucracy. I think that the period of time between when Rabbi Wolkenfeld sends out a question about a change in rules and the time when we have changed it is about 15 minutes. So we do have the benefit of being able to be quick.
Yeah. And yes, and that's also thanks to your responsiveness, which I really, really appreciate, whether it's a question from an individual or from me or from behalf of the shul. Very, very responsive. And I really, really appreciate that in the midst of all the life-saving work that you're doing during the day. Okay. Thank you again, everyone, for participating. Thank you for listening. The recording will be available tomorrow for anyone who missed this session and wants to watch. And again, you can send your questions to me. I'll pass them along in the coming days. All right. Thank you, everyone. If I don't see you before then, I wish you all a tivach simat tova, shana tova, sweet year, healthy year. And I look forward to seeing you all in shul or in the parking lot or in the streets, but somewhere very, very soon. All right. Best of wishes, everyone. Have a good night.